When billionaires say they don't own any assets, they're not lying. They're using a legal strategy that separates them from their wealth by still maintaining complete control of it. And it's completely legal. I'm talking about a wealth protection strategy that's so powerful, so effective, that it allows people to have billions of dollars in assets while being essentially judgment-proof from a legal standpoint. And here's what most people don't understand. This isn't some offshore tax evasion scheme or illegal hiding of money. This is a legitimate court-tested strategy that's been used by wealthy families for generations to protect their wealth from lawsuits, creditors, taxes, and even government seizure. Now, if you've clicked on this video, you're probably built some significant wealth, and you're starting to realize that the most successful you become, the bigger target you become as well. You're worried about lawsuits, you're concerned about taxes, and you're looking for ways to protect what you've built. Maybe you've heard about trusts before, but you probably think they're only for people with tens of millions of dollars. Or you think they're too complicated or too expensive, or just not worth the hassle. But here's what I'm going to show you in this video. The trust strategy that billionaires use isn't just for billionaires. It's scalable, it's accessible, and it's one of the most powerful wealth protection tools available to anyone who's serious about protecting their assets. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how this strategy works, why it's so effective, and how you can implement it regardless of your current wealth level. Despite what you might think, the most powerful part of this strategy isn't just the protection it provides, it's how it actually helps you build wealth faster while keeping it safer through proper money structures and tax optimization. So let me show you exactly how billionaires legally own nothing while controlling everything. Strategy number 1, legal separation versus control. This is the foundation. Let me explain this with a story that will make everything clear. Imagine you're a successful entrepreneur with 10 million in assets. You own real estate, investment accounts, business interests, and other valuable assets, all in your name. Now imagine someone sues you for $5 million. They can go after everything you own because you're the legal owner of all those assets. Your house, your investments, your business interests. It's all vulnerable because it's all in your name. But what if those same assets were owned by a trust and you were the beneficiary? The trust owns the assets, not you. You still control how they're managed, you still benefit from the growth, but legally you don't own them. When someone tries to sue you, they discover that you don't actually own the assets they may want to take from you. The trust owns them, and the trust isn't being sued. You are. Do you legally own all your assets? Or have you separated ownership from control through proper structuring? Most successful people own everything directly in their name, which means everything they own is vulnerable to creditors and lawsuits. Here's what billionaires understand. Legal ownership and beneficial control are two completely different things. You can control assets without owning them, and you can benefit from assets without being vulnerable to people who want to take them. This separation is the foundation of all advanced wealth protection strategies. Now, despite what you've been told, simply putting assets in a trust is the one step that is by far the most important and yet also the most overlooked. The real power comes from understanding how different types of trusts provide different types of protection. Strategy number 2, trust structures and benefits, the protection layers. This is where most people get confused about trusts. They think all trusts are the same, but billionaires use different types of trusts for different purposes, creating layers of protection that work together. Imagine you have a revocable living trust that holds your primary assets. This gives you complete control. You can change it, revoke it, or modify it anytime you want, but it doesn't provide asset protection because you still have too much control. So, you also have an irrevocable trust that holds your most valuable assets. You give up some control, but in exchange, you get powerful asset protection because you can't just take the assets back whenever you want. You might also have a domestic asset protection trust in a state with strong trust laws, or even an offshore trust for maximum protection. Each trust serves a different purpose and provides different benefits. Are you using the right type of trust structure for your specific protection? Or are you trying to solve all your problems with one simple solution? Most people think one trust can solve all their problems, but billionaires use multiple trusts working together to create comprehensive protection. Here's what proper trust structuring looks like. Different assets and different trusts based on their risk profiles. Different types of trusts providing different types of protection. Multiple layers working together to create comprehensive coverage that's stronger than any single structure. You're not just hiding assets, you're creating legitimate legal barriers that make it extremely difficult for creditors to reach your wealth. But after learning the fundamentals, there is one thing that people completely neglect, and it is something that could be one of the most important things to you when building wealth protection, and that's the tax optimization component. Strategy number 3, tax advantages making protection profitable. This is where trust strategies become not just about protection, but about wealth building. The same structures that protect your assets can also provide significant tax advantages when implemented correctly. Imagine you have assets that are appreciating rapidly, maybe real estate, business interests, cryptos, or investment accounts. If you own them directly, you'll pay capital gains taxes when you sell them, and they'll be included in your estate for estate tax purposes. But what if those assets were owned by a trust that was structured to minimize taxes? You could potentially reduce capital gains tax, eliminate estate tax, and even get income tax deductions for contributions to certain types of trusts. The trust isn't just about protecting your assets. It's helping you keep more of the wealth you generate and pass more to your beneficiaries. Are you paying more in taxes than necessary because you haven't optimized your asset ownership structure? Most successful people are paying significantly more in taxes than they need to because they own everything in the most tax-efficient way possible. Here's what billionaires understand. The same structures that provide asset protection can also provide tax optimization. You're not choosing between protection and tax efficiency. You're getting both from the same strategy. Properly structured trusts can reduce your current taxes, eliminate future estate taxes, and provide tax-free growth for your beneficiaries. Now, this next step I'm about to share with you is possibly one of the most important things to do when it comes to wealth strategy. And yet, it is the one people disregard the importance of the most: generational planning. Strategy number 4, estate planning benefits, generational wealth transfer. This is where trust strategies become truly powerful for building lasting wealth. Most people think about protecting their current assets, but billionaires think about protecting wealth for generations. Imagine you build a $50 million fortune during your lifetime. If you own everything directly, when you die, your estate could face estate taxes of 40% or more. Your family might have to sell assets just to pay the taxes, destroying the wealth you worked so hard to build. What if your assets were owned by trusts that were designed to last for generations? The assets could grow and compound for decades or even centuries without being subject to estate taxes every time someone dies. Your great-great-grandchildren could benefit from wealth that you created because the trust structure protected it from taxes and creditors across multiple generations. Are you building wealth just for yourself, or are you creating structures that can protect and grow wealth for generations? Most successful people are building wealth that will be destroyed by taxes and poor planning within 1 or 2 generations. Here's what generational wealth building looks like: trusts that are designed to last for multiple generations, structures that avoid estate taxes at every generation, systems that allow wealth to compound without being depleted by taxes or poor decisions by future beneficiaries. You're not just protecting your wealth, you're creating a legacy that can benefit your family for centuries. Now that we have everything we talked about settled, the next step is by far the easiest to process. Yet most people overcomplicate it: international protection. Strategy number 5, international considerations, or I like to call it global protection. This is the strategy that provides the highest level of asset protection, but it's also the most misunderstood. Most people think international trusts or about hiding money or evading taxation. But that's not what this is about at all. Imagine you have a domestic trust that holds your assets. It provides good protection under U.S. law. But what if the U.S. law changes? What if new regulations make your domestic protection less effective? What if you face a creditor who's willing to spend years and millions of dollars trying to break your domestic protection? An international trust adds another layer of protection by placing your assets under the jurisdiction of countries that have stronger asset protection laws and are less susceptible to U.S. legal pressure. You're still reporting everything to the IRS. You're still paying all required taxes, but you're adopting a jurisdictional barrier that makes it much more difficult and expensive for creditors to reach your assets. Have you considered the benefit of international asset protection? Or are you relying entirely on a domestic structure? Most people never consider the international dimension or these options because they think it's too complicated or too expensive. But for significant wealth, it can provide unmatched protection. Here's what international asset protection looks like. Trusts and jurisdictions with strong asset protection laws. Professional trustees who understand international law. Structures that comply with all U.S. reporting requirements while providing maximum protection. You're not hiding money, you're placing it in jurisdictions where it's much more difficult for creditors to reach. This next part can take you from being someone who relies on basic protection to someone who only needs to rely on professional grade systems. And it's something a lot of people just leave on the table. Strategy number 6, implementation strategies, or as I'd like to call it, making it work. This is where most people's trust strategies fail. They set up a trust, transfer some assets, and then forget about it. But trusts require ongoing management and proper implementation to provide the protection they're designed to give. Imagine you set up a perfect trust structure, but then you continue to operate as if you still own everything directly. You make decisions about trust assets without involving the trustee. You use trust assets for personal expenses. You treat the trust like your personal account. When someone sues you and challenges the trust, they're going to argue that the trust is a sham because you never actually gave up control. And if you haven't been operating the trust properly, they might be right. Are you operating your trust structures properly? Or did you just set them up and are forgetting about them? Most people set up trusts but don't operate them correctly, which means they don't get the protection they paid for. Here's what proper trust implementation looks like. Regular trustee meetings and decisions. Proper documentation of all trust activities. Clear separation between your personal activities and trust activities. Professional management that ensures ongoing compliance. You're not just creating protection on paper. You're building real, sustainable protection that will hold up under legal challenge. Look, trust strategies might seem complex, but that's because they are complex. Real estate protection isn't simple, and anyone who tells you it is either doesn't understand the risks or is trying to sell you something that won't work when you need it. But here's the good news. These strategies are accessible to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth. You don't need billions of dollars to benefit from these same strategies that billionaires use. You just need to implement them correctly. The key is to start building this protection before you need it, because by the time you need asset protection, it usually is too late to build it effectively. If you're serious about protecting your wealth that you've built, if you want to minimize your taxes while maximizing your protection, and if you want to create structures that can benefit your family for generations, then you need professional guidance from people who understand these complex strategies. At Numeratus, we specialize in exactly these kinds of advanced wealth protection and tax optimization strategies. We work with entrepreneurs, investors, and high-net individuals who understand the real protection requires sophisticated planning and professional implementation. We're not your typical accounting firm. We handle complex international and domestic trust strategies that other firms won't touch. And we help you build protection that actually works in the real world, not just on paper. If you want to learn more about how these trust strategies can work for your specific situation, how to implement them correctly, and how to build the kind of generational wealth protection that billionaires use, visit numeratus.us or contact us directly. Don't wait until you have a problem to start thinking about protection. The best time to build these structures is when you don't need them, so they're ready when you do.